1. Introduction. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. We live in a world where people often talk about success, how to achieve it, how to stay on top, and how to be the best. But we don't talk enough about the other side of that journey, failure. And yet, failure is something that every one of us has experienced, and many of us fear deeply. Whether it's failing an exam, not getting the job you wanted, ending a relationship, losing money in a business, or simply falling short of your goals, failure happens to all of us. It's not something that only weak people go through. In fact, even the most successful people in the world have failed, many times. But what really matters is not just the fact that we fail. What matters is how we think and feel about failure. What do we do when we fail? How do we react emotionally? How do we talk to ourselves? And most importantly, how do we move forward? Today, we'll talk about the psychology of failure. We'll explore where the fear of failure comes from, how it affects our emotions and behaviors, how society shapes our thinking, and how we can develop better ways to deal with failure in our lives. Let's begin with a simple but powerful question. What is failure? 2. Understanding failure. So, what is failure? In simple terms, failure means not reaching a goal. It's when something you wanted to achieve doesn't happen. But failure is not just an event. It's also an emotional experience. It comes with feelings of disappointment, frustration, sadness, and sometimes shame. Failure can look different for everyone. For a student, failure might mean getting a low grade. For an athlete, it might mean losing a competition. For a business owner, it could be a failed project or a company that goes bankrupt. For a parent, it might feel like they didn't raise their children well. Failure can be small, like forgetting to complete a task on time. Big, like losing your life savings in an investment. Private, such as struggling with personal goals. Public, like losing in front of a crowd or failing in your career. But one important thing to understand is that failure is not final. It's not a fixed label. It doesn't mean you are a failure as a person. It only means something didn't go as planned. Also, failure means that you were trying. You had a goal. You took action. That's something to be proud of. In fact, people who never fail often aren't taking any risks or challenging themselves. So, the first step in dealing with failure is understanding that it's a natural part of life, a necessary part of learning and growing. Everyone fails, but not everyone learns from it. 3. The origins of fear. Now let's talk about something deeper. Why are we so afraid of failure? The fear of failure is one of the most common human fears. It can be stronger than the fear of pain or even death in some cases. But where does this fear come from? It starts very early in life. As children, we're often taught that success is good and failure is bad. We're praised when we win, when we get good grades, when we follow the rules, but we may be scolded, punished, or embarrassed when we make mistakes. Over time, we begin to believe that failure is something to be ashamed of. In school, children learn to associate failure with punishment or judgment. A failed test may lead to a lower grade, a parent's disappointment, or even bullying from classmates. At home, failure may bring criticism or emotional withdrawal from caregivers. As we grow older, this fear becomes more complex. We start to tie our self-worth to our achievements. If we succeed, we feel valuable. If we fail, we feel worthless. In adulthood, failure can seem even scarier because it feels like we have more to lose: our jobs, our money, our relationships, our reputation. We begin to fear not just the event itself, but the emotions that follow: shame, rejection, judgment. This fear often leads us to avoid trying altogether. We play it safe. We don't speak up. We don't take chances. And in doing so, we miss out on learning and growing. But here's something important to remember. Fear is a teacher too. When we face the fear of failure and try anyway, we become stronger and more courageous. We expand our comfort zone, and little by little, the fear loses its power over us. 4. Emotional responses to failure. Let's now look at how failure affects us emotionally. When we fail, it's normal to feel a range of emotions: disappointment, frustration, embarrassment, sadness, even anger. These feelings are real and valid. They are not signs of weakness. In fact, they are part of being human. But what happens if we don't deal with those emotions in a healthy way? We might start to develop negative beliefs about ourselves. We might say things like, "I'm not good enough. I always fail. I'll never be successful." This is called negative self-talk, and it can be very damaging. When we repeat these messages in our minds, they become part of our identity. We stop believing in our abilities. We give up more easily. We stop trying. Some people may even start to feel depressed or anxious after a failure. Others may withdraw from social activities, isolate themselves, or become angry at others. But here's the good news. We can change the way we respond to failure. Emotional pain is real, but it doesn't have to control us. Here are some healthy ways to process failure emotionally. Allow yourself to feel. Don't suppress your feelings. It's okay to cry, to be upset, to grieve. Give yourself permission. Talk to someone you trust, a friend, a mentor, a family member. Talking helps release emotional tension. Write about it. Journaling is a powerful way to understand your emotions and clear your thoughts. Practice self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Would you say hurtful things to a friend who failed? Probably not. So don't say them to yourself either. Remember, it's temporary. Emotions change. The pain you feel today will not last forever. Finally, failure is a mirror. It shows us what matters to us. If you feel hurt, it's because you cared. That's not a weakness, it's a strength. 5. Society's role in shaping our fear of failure. Let's now take a step back and look at the world around us. Where do many of our thoughts about failure come from? Often they don't come from inside us, they come from society. From an early age, we're influenced by what society tells us is good, successful, or valuable. Think about the messages we see every day. On social media, people post only their wins, job promotions, vacations, awards, beautiful moments. In the news, we hear about the richest, the fastest, the best, but rarely about the journey or the failures. At school and work, high achievers are praised, mistakes are corrected quickly, and sometimes harshly. Over time, we begin to think, if I fail, I'm not valuable. If I'm not perfect, I'll be judged. If I don't succeed, I don't belong. This fear of judgment is a powerful force. It can make us hide our struggles. It can make us lie about our experiences. It can even push us to chase success not because we love something, but because we fear looking like a failure. Also, many cultures around the world have deep-rooted beliefs about failure. In some societies, making mistakes is seen as shameful. In others, failure is linked to weakness or lack of intelligence. But not all cultures see failure the same way. For example, in Silicon Valley, the global center of technology and innovation, many investors actually value entrepreneurs who have failed once or twice. Why? Because failure shows experience. It shows that the person has learned valuable lessons. In this context, failing is not shameful. It's part of the process. So, what does this teach us? It teaches us that our beliefs about failure are shaped by culture. They are not always based on truth. And that means we can unlearn them. By creating a more open society, one that accepts vulnerability, welcomes honesty, and embraces the full journey of success and failure, we can begin to change how failure is viewed. And when society becomes more accepting, individuals feel safer to try, to fall, and to rise again. 6. Psychological theories behind failure. Now, let's dive a bit deeper and look at how psychologists understand failure. There are several theories in psychology that help explain our reactions to failing. A. Attribution theory. This theory explores how people explain the causes of events, especially failure. For example, when someone fails an exam, they might say, "I'm just not smart enough." Internal cause. "The test was unfair." External cause. "I didn't study enough." Controllable cause. How we attribute the cause of failure matters a lot. If we always blame ourselves, we may feel helpless. If we always blame others, we may not learn. But if we see failure as something we can learn from and improve, we feel more empowered. B. Learned helplessness. This concept comes from studies on animals and humans. When someone experiences repeated failure, especially when they feel like nothing they do changes the outcome, they may develop what's called learned helplessness. They give up. They stop trying. They believe, no matter what I do, I'll fail. This mindset is dangerous because it keeps people stuck. But the good news is it can be changed with support, new experiences, and belief in small wins. C. Self-efficacy theory. Introduced by psychologist Albert Bandura, This theory explains the importance of believing in your ability to succeed. People with high self-efficacy are more likely to see failure as a challenge, not a threat. They try again. They stay motivated. People with low self-efficacy are more likely to feel crushed by failure and doubt their abilities. What builds self-efficacy? Past success, even small ones, seeing others like you succeed, encouragement from others, managing stress and emotions. In short, how we explain failure, how often we experience it, and how we believe in ourselves all play a role in our psychological response. And that brings us to one of the most personal areas of this topic, how failure affects our identity. 7. Identity, ego, and the fear of being less. Failure is never just about the event. It's about what the event means to us. Let's say someone fails a university entrance exam. The result is a number on paper. But in their mind, it might mean, I'm not smart. My parents will be ashamed. I'm not worthy of success. Why do we connect a single result to our entire identity? The answer lies in the ego, our sense of self. Our ego is shaped by what we do, how we see ourselves, and how others see us. When we succeed, the ego feels strong and proud, but when we fail, it feels weak and broken. That's why some people take failure personally. They don't just think, I failed at this task. They think, I am a failure. This is called identity fusion with performance, when your self-worth is completely tied to outcomes. The danger? If you only feel valuable when you succeed, then your self-worth is always at risk. To grow beyond this, we must learn to separate who we are from what we do. You are not your exam scores. You are not your job title. You are not your income. You are not your mistakes. You are a whole person with thoughts, dreams, values, and emotions. Failure is something you experience, not something you become. A healthy ego knows how to admit mistakes without falling apart. It can say, this didn't go well, but I'm still learning, I'm still growing, I'm still worthy. Building this kind of mindset takes time, but it's the foundation of resilience. 8. Childhood, education, and the roots of perfectionism. Let's take one more step back in time, to our childhood. Many of our beliefs about failure are shaped in school, at home, and during early life experiences. In traditional education systems, success is often measured by grades, scores, and ranks. Children who get high marks are praised. Those who struggle may be seen as slow, lazy, or problematic. Over time, many children develop a fear of making mistakes. They don't want to be laughed at. They don't want to disappoint teachers or parents. They don't want to feel less than their classmates. This is where perfectionism is born. Perfectionism is the belief that I must always get it right. Mistakes are unacceptable. If I'm not perfect, I'm not good enough. Perfectionism can lead to high achievement, but also anxiety, fear, and burnout. Perfectionists often fear failure so much that they don't even try. But where do these beliefs come from? Parents and teachers who set very high expectations but don't accept failure with kindness. Reward systems that only praise results, not effort. Cultural values that focus more on reputation than on personal growth. As adults, these early lessons continue to affect us. Even in the workplace, we may still fear making mistakes in front of authority figures. We may still carry that inner voice that says, "Don't mess up, or people will think less of you." To heal from this, we need to relearn that mistakes are part of learning. Reward effort, not just outcomes. Teach young people and ourselves to see failure as feedback. Because if we teach young people that failure is safe, useful, and normal, they grow into adults who are brave, curious, and creative. Thanks so much for hanging out with me in part 1. I've got a lot more to share, so don't miss part 2. It's coming tomorrow. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you then.